So this woman has been looking for me for 37 years, because I was 5 when I was adopted. And every year she goes back to Korea. The family asks, "Where is Angel? Have you found Angel?" And so now, 2019, the third private investigator she hires, they find my father, who was in Mexico. So he's on the phone saying, "Are you sitting down, kiddo?" Like, "No, I'm not sitting down. I'm busy. What?" And he said, "Your cousin found you after this long time. She's been looking for you. Would you like to call her? She wanted to make sure that you were ready." I was like, "Well, yeah, but I got to go home. I can't do this here at work." So that night I went home and I went on FaceTime with her. And it was the first time I saw a Korean face looking at me that looked like me.
Welcome to Embodying You, a podcast of spiritual exploration where nothing is off limits. You'll hear raw, behind the scenes stories from people awakening to their soul's path and how they became the healers, mystics, and intuitives they are today. You'll also experience real-time intuitive sessions and healings where struggles transform into breakthroughs that you can bring into your own life. Along the way, you just might recognize yourself in the stories shared. This is Embodying You. Hello, and welcome to this week's podcast. This week, I have Angel Moran on, a dear friend of mine who we met in the Human Design Mastermind that Emma Dunwoody did in 2022. And this woman, I love her so much. We connected the most after the mastermind. We would have these beautiful conversations. And I would always tell her voice sounded like smooth jazz. And there's a synchronicity in regards to that if you end up wanting to talk about the smooth jazz of your voice. But we also almost did a podcast together, did all the going in and figuring things out. We even got things handed to us on a platter. But when it came time back in 2023, we were not there. We were not ready. So we're going to see what stories come through here. But Angel, welcome. By the way, hello.
Hi. Thank you.
I would love, because we all have our story to getting where we are now. We all have our story of, as children or even as we were growing up, did we believe in the spiritual? Did we believe there was a God? Did we believe there were angels? Did we, what did we believe and where are we now? So I'm just, in brief, I'm very curious to know, what was your trajectory with spirituality and believing in the truth of the world rather than what we're taught? So just whatever comes up for you to share.
Yeah, that's such a big question. I was very spiritual as a child. My memories go back usually around like age 5. My mother died when I was 5, so I feel like that cutoff point mentally. And as a result, because my mother died and my name is Angel and I was raised Catholic, I just think that I really held on to how I could communicate with her was through prayer, I had this beautiful cross that was on my dresser, and I would kneel down and pray. And I was adopted when I was around age 5. And I do remember being in Illinois with my family, my adopted family, and somebody saw me on my knees praying. And I felt this like, I don't know if shame is the right word, but I felt like this mockery of like private moment, and I got caught. And I think from there, even though I was going to Catholic school, it was now this perception of, well, I want to hide it. So I do think that went dormant, and I didn't really go into spirituality as I know it now until probably my 20s, early 20s, when I started yoga and meditation. And that way was more about me finding that stillness inside. And I remember the first time I recognized I had never been an observer of my thoughts. And that just blew my mind away. That my entire life, I've just been in reaction mode. And when I saw that, I think that really was the piece that made me curious to learn more. So I went through I Ching, and I Ching is how I would make a lot of life choices from small to large choices. And I think that's how I connected with intuition without naming that.
What is I Ching for the people that don't know?
Yeah, I Ching is an ancient scripture that has a series of 64 hexagrams. And so they're just lines stacked on each other in binary code. So it's either a straight line or a dashed line. And it's something that was used like an oracle or a divination.
Mm.
And there's other ways that people have used it to talk to ancestors, to commune with the unknown, not incarnate spirits. And they say that I don't even know how old it is. It's one of the most ancient books. And they used to even use it not in like how I do with coins and a piece of paper and pen, but with tortoise shells and seeing the markings on the back of the tortoise. So this led me down that rabbit hole of just having some structure to asking questions and then having intuition take over. It's like tarot cards. It's a way for me to talk to myself again, my highest self.
Yeah.
But that was introduced to me in my 20s. And I think since then, I've really utilized that when I have, and it's called the Book of Changes, is the I Ching. And the interesting thing for me when I saw that book, what I recognized was those trigrams are on the corners of the Korean flag, the South Korean flag. And in the middle of the South Korean flag is the yin yang symbol. It's just in red and blue, like the Pepsi logo. And I thought, wait, what is that about? Because that looks just like the Korean flag. And I think just those little tie ins kept me interested enough to
Yeah.
work with it more.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Okay. I'm definitely feeling like because you just mentioned the Korean flag that you've got to give some of that story and any synchronicities, serendipities, anything that you want to share about, I'm just going to say Korea because I want it to be all your story.
Mm,
Um, please share.
yeah. So I have been on quite a journey recently with Korea. Korea has been said out of my mouth daily for the last, I don't know if it's been 2 solid years yet, but almost 2 years this September. And so I was born in Korea, in South Korea, in Seoul, and I was a Korean child. I was born with my Korean mother and an American Caucasian father. And so, being a mixed race baby in the late 70s, early 80s, I was always told since then that that was complicated in a society that really was trying to preserve their bloodline, or I don't know how to say it best. And so I was always told these stories from my adopted family, from people in just where I grew up, that I'm better off in America. And it was just this language of how that was this other place. And I did not know anybody that spoke Korean. I didn't know any Korean people growing up. My whole family's Caucasian. So I really tried to put into the background any part of myself that was Korean. And having that shame, uh,
Mm.
erasure of my culture, heritage, language, everything. Because I was a 5-year-old
Yeah.
child. So I was speaking both languages, Korean and English. I was eating Korean food. I mean, I just lived that existence. But like I said earlier, there's this cutoff point in my memory when my mother died
Mhm.
that I don't remember consciously a lot of those experiences. And so when I became an American child, I did not want anybody to speak Korean to me. I didn't want to keep that language, any association with it, because I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be different.
Mm.
So, flash forward, I'm just living my American life, and I'm in my 20s. Um, and I discover I did not have my certificate of naturalization, which means since I wasn't born in the United States of America, I needed that to become a citizen. And when you're a child that's adopted, not all countries do this. America is one of the few. You have to fill out a form to say, yes, I want my child to be American, which is weird. It's like you should be
Ah.
opted in, or, you should be able to have to opt out as opposed to have to opt in. But because we discovered this when I was in my 20s, I was no longer a minor. So I had to do this process on my own, which I didn't know. At this point, I'm just freaking out because I'm like, wait a minute. You're telling me that if I do something wrong, get arrested, I can be deported to a country I don't remember, to a language I don't know. So
Yeah.
that started this really deep identity crisis, is the best way to name it. And
Mhm.
so that made me look for my birth father, which I probably wouldn't have done up to that point. I didn't know the story of why he wasn't there, but he was there for the first 2 years of my life. He was stationed in Korea. And basically, he and my mom played house. They had an apartment, they raised this little baby. So I knew there was some connection, and I always knew I could find him. I had his social security number, a lot of his army paperwork. So back in the AOL days, I looked online and put a phone number, some kind of people search in, and I did end up finding him. So that was the first person I saw that looked like me. He lives in Florida, so I went to go meet him. I
Mhm.
got some stories about my mother, but that's really as far as it went. I ended up getting my citizenship, which was years long process. I had to do tests.
Mm.
I had to do the citizenship ceremony. But all through that experience, I was still what adoptees call being in the fog. It's just this cloud of consciousness where you're not identifying as a Korean person, as somebody who was adopted. It's just you don't really want to think about it.
Mhm.
So, flash forward to 2019, I was selling my business. I believe, and I think here is a safe place for me to share this. It wasn't just I got a phone call and my life changed. It was 2, 3 years before I was doing a lot of what we call manifestation work, trying
Uh-huh.
to I wanted to sell my business. I had a donut shop in Boise, Idaho, and I thought it impossible that I could separate this business from myself. I mean, I built this out of my vision. It was just such a woven part of me. So
Yeah,
I
like,
knew
take
go
a moment, because take just a moment. The donut shop was not just any donut shop, y'all.
Yeah, yeah.
What was the donut shop?
Yeah, Guru Donuts. And
Uh-huh.
it's still around. It's on its third owner, and it's something that started out of my home with my husband, our neighbor, and it was something that the community built, and so many synchronicities happened. I'm not a baker. I'm not somebody who makes donuts, normally. None of us were except for our neighbor who he was a baker and his last name was Baker. So we just thought this was a fun idea, just silly
Yeah.
little thing like, "Oh, wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't this be cool?" And it really just grew and grew, and we played donut shop for a little while out of our house, and then we just
Yeah.
built this huge donut shop, which is I mean, it sounds like such a simple thing, but 7 days a week, 24 hours a
Yeah.
day, staff of 14. It was an endeavor.
Yeah, and didn't you all bless the donuts or something? There was something else with the donuts.
Yeah, my husband, became the baker after Michael left, and he would go in at around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we called it Guru because we were obsessed with listening to the recordings from Ram Dass and a
Ah.
lot of these different, what, you can say are guru-esque figures, right, from these lineages,
Mhm.
in India, and just the wisdom. I was doing a lot of yoga at the time and working with yoga studios. So it's just something we enjoyed. And doing the I Ching divinations, it was just kind of who we were together. So we would listen to hours and hours of Ram Dass while you're making the dough, and everything's from scratch. So you have hours of preparation in the kitchen. We cracked the eggs, the milk, everything came from local farms too. So we had really, it was about intentionality. And we were listening to
Mhm.
and reading Dr. Emoto's work with the water. And my husband would go to different rivers and water sources around the country and record the water, the audio. And so that was just who we were before this. So we wove that into our daily practice with the donuts. And we just wanted this to be an experience where it was intuitive, it was intentional. And so by putting love and intention into the water mixture when the yeast went in, as the yeast was
Mhm.
activating with the sugar, that's when, it's kind of like the primordial water, if you will, of just when this yeast is being, formed into contact with something that this
Mhm.
one batch is going to reach, maybe 100 people and a lot of kids, a lot of children, and the joy of donuts, right? The color and the confection,
Yeah.
how fun it is for people to go to a donut
Yeah.
shop. We wanted that joy to be something that was even deeper of a level of just love and intention from all the different layers. And then even as I was in the front of the house selling the donuts and everything we did, we just blessed in a very simple, heartfelt way of humility. And
Yes.
people really felt it. And they just, a lot of people didn't even eat gluten and would just come to the shop and be like, there's just something about just being here. I just feel really good being here with you guys. So
Oh my gosh, I love that. Thank you for taking a moment to segue into that because I feel like honestly, especially the way that this podcast goes, a lot of times we could have a whole episode about all
right.
the things you all did for that. Even when you talked about Dr. Emoto's work with water, I've talked on here about water before and about Veda Austin, who
Yes.
who on her Instagram, I mean, oh my gosh, I have her coffee table book, which is absolutely beautiful, but where she took Dr. Emoto's work and then am I saying his name right? Okay. And then she has figured out a process for freezing it, and she'll have, maybe she'll freeze 4 different petri dishes after putting them over a picture of, let's say, a ladder, and each one of them in some way has a ladder in it, and she puts thoughts and emotions into the water, and when she freezes it, maybe if she thinks about love, right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but for the listeners, like, maybe she thinks about love, and the water will communicate with her by showing a heart, and other people have replicated this, so even just that alone and blessing the food and blessing the water is just something that we've gotten so out of touch with. And, I do my best to bless it, to bless my food and water, but, I forget sometimes. And it's such a privilege to have all of it, the food, the, well, some would say not the water, that we should all have access to water, all of us for free. But yeah, thank you for taking a moment with that.
Thank you for asking because I
Yeah.
also take that for granted. And the labor of love was huge for that endeavor. And it became all consuming. And
Mm.
I got ambitious and I needed, then it became about keeping it going once you create something so big and that was so well received. And I experienced a lot of burnout because it's just
Mm.
my own generator engine, just on burnout cycles. And
Yeah.
it was intense. So I forget the beauty of it sometimes when I think back.
Mhm.
So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Okay, so I interrupted your story of whatever
No
wants to flow
worries.
through you.
Yeah, so it got to that point where I was in a cycle of burnout. I couldn't rest. I did not know how to
Mm.
rest. I didn't have tools at that time. Or even if I did, my nervous system was just so jacked on caffeine and the energy. So I recognized I needed to step away. And it did. It felt so impossible. Like, how am I just like that overnight just going to find somebody to buy this thing? So I knew I needed to do some inner work and slow down and regulate myself, although I didn't have that language. So
Mhm.
I loved I Ching, and I just Googled I Ching and looking at workshops. Like, there's got to be somebody that works with this, and that's how I
Yeah.
found Richard Rudd's work with the Gene Keys. And so
Yes.
it's like I kind of feel like I went into the human design world backwards. I went from first I Ching, then Gene Keys. And so I did some of his online workshops, and you really deep dive into 7-year cycles of your life. The first 7 years, the second 7-year cycle, and the third 7-year cycle.
With Richard Rudd's Gene Keys is what you're talking about.
Right. The
Okay.
Venus sequence. And it took me into this place of able to finally look and see where I came from. I think also that when I found to be magnetic work. And so I'm doing this um, visualizations and finding my magnetic mom that's mothering me. And that was a
Mhm.
part that was really difficult for me to meet and confront. And, that I didn't have grief at the time was even a language for me, but I was really
Yeah.
processing a lot of grief that I had repressed. So through that work, and I know it was through that work, some miraculous things happened. There's a moment when I was meditating and it was freezing outside in Idaho and there was snow on the ground. And all of a sudden, I hear something on this blank canvas that I had on an easel, and it's just flapping. And I look up, and it's a butterfly or a moth or something that's just flapping and flapping at the canvas. And I'm thinking, am I imagining this? No, there's something right there. So I opened the window to let it out because it had gone to the window at this point. And then I'm thinking, what did I just do? I just killed this creature because it's freezing outside. It's like 8 degrees. But then I thought, well, if there was nothing there, it was just such a confusing moment. And then it just really affected me of like, this was miraculous. Like, where did that come from? I felt like I somehow connected with a different time or place. And it was
Mhm.
there to show me like the mind is able to portal and do these amazing things that I can't explain. So a lot of those kind of moments started happening. So then flash forward to 2019, we end up selling our business and we're now training the new owners, and we have like a month to train them before I'm done and I can just go on vacation for the first time. And I get a phone call from my adopted dad who's living in Mexico. And my cousin, who I never knew, she was a Korean woman who married an American soldier in the early 70s, so before I was born. And
Mm.
she came to America and she would go back and forth to visit family in Korea and live in America. She had 3 children. And she came to America, knew me, like saw me as a little baby. And when my mother knew she was dying of cancer, she was trying to figure out how to get me to America. That was her main goal. And
Mm.
so the assumption was my cousin was going to adopt me and bring me to the States. And at the last moment, even this woman, my cousin, had plane tickets to come and get me from Korea. So she bought the tickets, she arrived in Korea, and she was told by my birth mother, no, you're not taking Angel. This other family, this American military family, higher ranking officer, she wanted me to have, more opportunity. They're going to take her instead. So that's how this story played out, back then. So this woman has been looking for me for 37 years because I was 5 when I was adopted. And every year she goes back to Korea, the family asks, "Where is Angel? Have you found Angel?" And so
Mm.
now 2019, the third private investigator she hires, they find my father who was in Mexico. So he's on the phone saying, "Are you sitting down, kiddo?" Like, "No, I'm not sitting down. I'm busy. What?" And he said, "Your cousin Miwa found you after this long time. She's been looking for you. Would you like to call her? She wanted to make sure that you were ready." I was like, "Well,
Mm.
yeah, but I gotta go home. I gotta, I can't do this here at work." So that night I
Yeah.
went home and I went on FaceTime with her. And it was the first time I saw a Korean face looking at me that looked like me. So I
Oh,
had this experience with my American father, but there was just something different, I think, with somebody that I did, have interactions with when I was.
yeah.
So that was pretty life changing. So that's how I reconnected with my Korean family. And so in the adoption community, it's, called reunion. But I wasn't even out of the consciousness of my adoption. Like I wasn't identifying as an Asian person. I wasn't identifying as an adopted person. Even though I said it, I didn't really understand what that meant. And so
Mhm.
it took me until last year, 2025 is when I went back to Korea, but I was really dragging my feet. There was some fears and there were so many unspoken things that I had not even, it was just repressed, so much repression. And so I went on this journey to learn all the tools I could to be with myself in that
Mhm.
experience. I knew this was going to be heavy. And so the one of the reasons she wanted me to go to Korea, obvious reasons, already there, but my birth mother and my grandmother were buried side by side in Korea on land that was not really a great grave site. And so most of the other family members, my family's quite small in comparison to other Asian Korean families, and they're older. And so a lot of them have passed. So those family members that were buried, all of the children, which are my cousins, went back, exhumed their bodies, cremated them, and that way this experience was, like not
Okay.
Earth. So that
I
was
heard
not
you talk about that, about exhuming
yeah.
them, but I didn't understand, and I thought, "Okay, we'll talk later," and here we are. So that's why, because they were not in a good location and they needed to be
Literally the
moved.
land. Yeah, I think a lot of flooding happens because Korea's a peninsula, so it's surrounded by water, and it's kind of this marshy land, and when we walked on it, it was lumpy and strange, like, kind of, growth, it's kinda swampy almost. So,
Mm,
luckily, the grave sites were intact. There was n they were saying how lucky that was when we were at this experience. But because
yeah.
I'm her daughter, she wanted to find me before they did this. So they were waiting a very long time. They were buried 41 years before, and they were waiting for me to have this experience,
Oh,
which was so moving for me that they were
yeah.
giving me this opportunity to not only see my mother and grandmother's graves, but then to
Mhm.
be a part of this. It's kind of just this transition, right, for them, for the
Yeah.
not incarnate ones, and so this sent me in this rabbit hole of connecting with my ancestors, connecting with
Mhm.
adoptees, connecting with Korea, and that's the last 2 years, the journey that I've been on.
Ah, yeah, there's so much there. There's so much there. Oh my gosh. Thank you for sharing that story because I know that's just touching the surface of it.
Right.
And so I'm going to see what we're going to go back to. What I'm hearing is that there is some sort of synchronistic story, like a how in the world would that happen? Somewhere around, there's something that happened in Korea when you went. Maybe it was with exhuming their bodies or something, but what are some of the crazy stories that you feel like have happened of synchronicities or signs kind of maybe letting you know that your mother was there with you, or even what you found when you talk about ancestors? Are you talking about spiritual ancestors? Like, what are you talking about? Like, what are some of the things that people might be curious about on your journey, the signs that led you there, the intuition that led you to these varying moments? And we'll just kind of chat back and forth.
Yeah, there's about 5 questions there that I could answer, so I'll
Oh
take
my
the
gosh.
first
Yeah, I
one.
know. It was all coming out.
No, it's great, it's great. The first one immediately came to mind, it's my favorite moment of Korea because it was, and I know you know this, Tiffany, this just that knowing, that confirmation of the connection between heaven and earth, and so when I unlike a lot of adoptees, I have a lot of information. I know my birth parents' names. I know my
Mm,
family. There's so much data that most adoptees
yeah.
don't ever have. And the statistic is only 4% of us will ever reunite with our birth families or even get the exposure to this information. So
Mhm.
that right there is a privilege. So
Yeah.
not only that, but I always had with me a book of photos. Most of the adults were removed from the pictures so that I didn't cling on, I think, to their memory, which of course is very sad and I wished I had. But I did have a series of photos. One of them was my cousin who found me. Oh my gosh, the timing of this is so good. You just so
Of
her
my cat coming
walk
in.
on the screen for those on audio. And this story is about a cat. So,
Oh, no way.
yeah, oh, yeah. So,
Synchronicity.
a striped cat too. So my, cousin that found me, that thought she was gonna adopt me, she had 3 children, 3 boys, and they did visit us in Korea, and I have photos of them. I think because we were preparing for me to, like, get to know the kids and see if this is gonna work for me to join their family. So in these photos of that experience, you can tell there's a
Uh-huh.
series of them. There's this orange tabby cat. And I don't remember this cat. I don't see the cat in any other photos. So I associate the cat with these kids and this family. So now that's all I know most of my life. So now I'm in Korea. And of course, I mean, I get there on a Saturday. And if anybody has traveled to Asia from the United States, it is, 12, 13, 14-hour flight. It's intense, just the physical aspect of journeying there. Even with
Ah.
modern, everything, it's difficult. It's physically challenging. And I get there, see my family reunite, and it's 4 days later that we go to the gravesite. and it's a 2-hour drive.
Mm.
So on the way, and mind you, I'm not speaking the same language as most of them. My Korean American cousin is translating. So we're in the back seat. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to back up. On the way walking, I had an Airbnb just 6-minute walk away. I'm walking knowing I'm heading to go see my mother for the first time in her
Mhm.
gravesite. So I'm
Yeah.
very contemplative as I'm walking, and these are huge, giant stone steps. So everything is just very sensorial and just amazing. And I just asked this prayer, please, can you just show me something mystical? Show me something magical. I want to connect,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh.
And I decide to just let that go, and then I see this beautiful cat, this orange tabby cat, and he's walking and being very playful. And so just walking in front of me, and then ends up going underneath a little door. And so I continue walking away, go meet my cousin, and we're waiting for another. There's 5 cousins, so waiting for another one to come pick us up. And I see this beautiful black butterfly. And that butterfly to me was my sign because this thing was massive, 100% black, and just the most beautiful, lacy creature. And I just thought,
Mhm.
oh, that's it. That's my sign. Thank you. So then I start following with my eyes this butterfly going up from where I had just walked down. And I see the orange tabby cat playing with the butterfly. And I was like,
Oh
oh
my
my God,
gosh.
that's it. That's the sign, like that does it for me. So then we get in the car, and I'm sitting in the back with my cousin who can speak English, and we're chatting back and forth. And so she's translating for the cousin in the passenger seat, who turns around and asks, does Angel remember having an orange tabby cat? And I looked at my cousin. I was like, why did you just ask me that? Like, did you see that orange cat? And she's like, what are you talking about? So I tell her what happened. And she said, oh, it's the ancestors. It's our mothers. And
Oh.
so this just had happened mere moments ago. And then out of nowhere, and this cousin who asks me was inside. She didn't see this at all. And out of the blue, and she said, well, we gave you that cat when your mother was sick so that you would have, basically emotional support, a friend. And I
Oh.
didn't know that that was my cat this whole time. And I have wanted an
Oh.
orange tabby cat, not really connecting the dots mentally or consciously. And so anyway, that was, it's just funny how I wanted to attach the butterfly to it. And then the butterfly playing with this cat, it just kept, and then to have
Yes.
this real confirmation drop in that I can't deny of people asking me a memory that was so specific to my mother. And the other
Yeah.
part of it is all of them have lost their mother and have done this for them as well. So
Mm.
I was in community with women who had lost their mothers and had gone before in this experience. So it was just such a feeling of being held by ancestors, being held by our mothers.
Yeah.
And I have one other quick one is the night before, I had a dream where all of my cousins and I were sitting and we were all wearing white. And it's a story I was told that Koreans used to wear white. They were called the people who wear white back when they were being colonized by Japan. And then over the years, it's now they mostly wear black. Like, a lot of the young Koreans wear all black. So it's usually a mix of white or black. But in my dream, all of us were sitting around a dining table wearing white. And when I told my cousin, she just gasped, like, "Oh, that's a really good sign." So just little moments like that, especially around
Oh.
that day.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And for one thing, can we talk about a culture that believes in the signs and believes in the ancestors and all that? I mean, that's so cool. And then the other thing that came up is just a synchronicity is I have a cat. Well, not anymore, but he was very dear to me. And he was an orange tabby cat. And he had what I called a bunny tail. He reminded us of a bunny because he was born without a tail. And
Oh,
I actually don't know the nationality of his name, but when we were looking in a baby name book, we were just looking and trying to find just that was just where we were getting our ideas. We ended up with the name Yasu, which means tranquil one. And again, I have no idea if like what language it is. But my memory is that it was Asian. It was an Asian name and it meant tranquil one because when we got him and his sister, that and when we first got them, because they were flea ridden and things like that, we had them in a giant bird cage. As weird as that sounds, it was a giant bird cage that we'd had a large parrot in. It was laying on its side. So we just had him in that for a little bit while the fleas were doing their thing. And we would walk in there and his sister would be tucked up in a ball and just looking at us like, what? But he was laid out on his back, my orange cat with his arms up. And oh my gosh, it was the cutest thing. It was the cutest thing. And so I
Oh,
feel like there's something, I'm just curious if I can find the, um, the etymology of the name Yasu. I'm going to look that up real quick. So I'm looking, and Yasu is actually a Japanese name. Yasu. And you were just talking about the Japanese colonizing
mhm.
Korea.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know.
actually
There's,
I have a lot of connection with Japanese, which is interesting. So Japan really did colonize Korea, so there is a lot of unhappy memories that Koreans
yeah,
have of that experience. It happened
yeah.
many times, and they've been colonized by all the countries around them. Mongolia, China, Russia. So it's
Mm,
something that also was what I just tangent in the gene keys, my sphere of, I think it's the SQ, I forget what it is, but it's like the time when you're in utero. And that one was oppression. And before I really was
mm,
contemplating that, I was thinking about what the different like word that you would describe each country was. In America, I think freedom. And Korea, and I thought, gosh, what would Korea be? And I thought oppression was like the word. And so there is this collective consciousness of what is called Han, HAN, among the Korean people, and it's
mm,
this kind of depression because they've been colonized so much and controlled so much, which is, by the way, my control sphere or control is the shadow of my purpose sphere in, I Ching and Gene Keys and human design. So it's these words that I've been really
mm,
seeing the theme throughout. So I was working with the ancestors, trying to get ready for this experience of going to Korea. And part of that practice, it's through Daniel Foor's ancestral medicine. And it's a beautiful community, beautiful ancestral healing, lineage repair work. And part of it is just working with your intuition to connect. And you're connecting with
mm-hmm.
your highest guides that are really the ones doing the communication with your ancestor
Yep.
guides.
Yep.
And the ancestor guides were just, it was just hard for me to really connect. I was just so in my head, as
Yeah.
with, the work of just trying to let that go. And so I just was like, just play along, whatever comes to mind. Right. And part of
Yeah.
it was this, I just saw the word Kyoto. And I was like, come on, Kyoto's in Japan, like wrong country. And right after that, I go to watch Apple TV, and they had Pachinko, which is this movie. And at the beginning, it shows this Asian family, and this woman is having a baby. She just had a baby, and you can tell she's in distress. And she goes to this door, and inside is a little girl and her grandmother, and they're wearing hanboks, which is Korean, and the traditional Korean dress. And this woman takes the baby to this, and it ends up she's like a shaman, a healer. And the woman puts on this really elegant hanbok, and she's spinning around and doing all of this ritual work to basically help heal this child's lineage and baby, to
hmm
how they're going to grow up. And part of the story is that there are Koreans living in Japan, and anyway, without spoiling the story, it was very interwoven, the Korean and Japan storyline, because
Oh,
so many were taken from Korea to Japan. And I'm not saying
yeah.
that that happened to my family necessarily, but it was just a drip, a little
Yeah.
old piece that came down, and then to have this random show pop up that I was not
Yep.
looking for, right?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, what this reminds me of, and I think this is so good because a lot of times we can think that intuition or messages that come from ancestors or guides that they're going to point us right to the thing. And kind of like how you said, wrong place. And maybe you doubted yourself
Oh,
as
yeah.
that came through, right? But instead, when we trust what comes through and know that we're not making it up, it can lead us to beautiful places. So I remember there was this one morning that it was a rare occasion where I had a client who wanted me to help her find something, find some paperwork. She was looking to get her citizenship in the country where her grandfather was born. I believe I have that story right. And I had never tried to find things before. I was also at work at the law firm. So for those who don't know, I currently work 3 days a week at the law firm. Then the other days are on this business as I'm transitioning into this being my full-time business. And Angel's been here again since before I even knew how to do energy work like this. I get to work at the law firm and I'm going to be doing her session there, which I never do. I always do it at home or I'm in my space, but I decided to do it there. On the way to work, because I drove there, I was the way that I was sinking in, and I don't remember if the song came on the radio or what happened, but I started hearing her name and song. Okay. So it was a certain, I'm trying to think if she's done some testimonials for me, but I don't know if she's talked about this piece, even though it's not like a super private thing. But basically, the a song came on that had her name in it. And as I was going through and I was singing the song and realizing, oh, wait, this is a sign, this is something coming through, I was led to look up the guy's name who sings the song. I think it's, oh, what is his name? He's the Latino guitarist, Santana. Santana.
Carlos
And
Santana.
so I looked up the song and I saw, I believe, oh my gosh, this story, I didn't know the story was going to come out. So some of my facts, I'm questioning myself, but I'm almost certain that he's from a certain country in Guatemala.
Yeah, I don't know where he's.
And when I looked that up, I was confused because I'm like, well, we're not talking about Guatemala. We're talking about Spain. So I don't know, but yet where Santana was born, the name of the city was standing out to me. And so when I got on with the woman, I just said, "Hey, this is a song that came in. This is what's happened so far. What does any of this mean?" And basically we figured out that the city he was born in, so though it wasn't in Guatemala, it was a city in this one part of Spain, which was exactly where she was thinking of looking for a particular kind of paperwork. And so even though this part of the song came in and I was like, oh, maybe that's it. Oh, maybe this, maybe that. And then I thought it wasn't. It led us in that certain direction. And so sometimes we don't always know what it is. And if our minds grab too hard, too strongly onto a sign and saying, oh, this is the meaning of it, then we'll lose it. Like, for example, I'll say this very quickly here, but it'll be two podcast episodes ago by the time this airs. And it's the one called What is Energy? In that episode, I talk about how I've been getting all these signs for California. And even whenever I asked, it's for the kids and I to go on a trip. Even whenever I asked, okay, are we flying? Then I started getting signs that of my question was, are we flying? Right. And I'm in my mind thinking me and the kids, are we flying? Well, next thing I know, I get a free gift from our office supply company, who the biggest free gift they've ever given is a 2-pack of Otis Spunkmeyer cookies. But this time it is a backpack that is specially shaped to put under your airplane seat. Okay. And then I had, another sign right after that of a client my brand new unveiled client who works part-time at an airport so she can fly for free. It was that night. And then I said, okay, well, where? And then this part I definitely won't go into, but I started getting signs for California. But yet, when I would look for Airbnbs for California, when I would try to get a feel for it, nothing was working out. Nothing was working out, right? Then lo and behold, all these things fall into place. I don't force anything. So that's also key here. I didn't force anything. I just knew, no, the energy doesn't feel right to book. I know how it feels when the energy feels right to book. Because again, I booked some crazy, amazing Airbnbs that I honestly just can't even believe. Like one of them was a home surrounded on three sides by a river. There
Cool.
was a little bridge in front and in back in order to get to this house. I mean, oh my gosh, so cool. But with this, some things happened after that episode to where I realized, oh, wait a minute. I'm not meant to take the kids to California. Instead, I got a text from a friend saying, hey, do you want to go to this conference? It's a conference I've been asking to go to for about a year. She sends me that message. Guess what? It's in California. And the moment I made a decision, a business decision, everything clicked into place. That came through and it's, oh, you're supposed to go to that. The signs were for you to go to this conference with her, but you and the kids are actually going here. I believe it's Colorado. I've still not booked yet, but that's where the signs have been and where I had actually previously looked and asked my kids, what do you think about a mountain trip during the summer, even though we normally do beach in the summer, mountains in the winter? And so there really is something here to releasing and letting go, even when we do get the signs of what they mean. And
Yeah.
just, okay, it's communication,
Uh-huh.
it is guidance, but I'm going to make sure my mind stays out of it and I stay changeable and malleable.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that's, I try to remember that the forces that are unseen are trying to communicate with us with the tangible molecular objects that are here with us. It's
Hmm.
not their chosen tools. You know what I mean? It's not like an easy set. So it's like if you
Yeah.
were trying to communicate with somebody through Cheerios only, like what would that look like? And you're trying to push these little circular things in milk, around and you have a bowl and a spoon. Like that's all you got to work with. And so the message might be misinterpreted and it
Mm.
easily be missed if you're not aware. But if you're
Yeah.
just able to, because it's a feeling that we're tuning into, or I'm tuning into anyway, it's this
Yeah.
feeling, not a mental, piece. And
Hmm.
sometimes then I get into, rhythms of like overthinking and over searching for these signs. And that's when it can
Yeah.
also be a mixed message.
Oh, yes. I know what you mean. I remember when a friend and I were leading a group. We were leading a It's Not Your Money group, doing repair work on our relationship with money. And there was a woman in the group when me and the other person who was leading it, Amy Michelle, we were just talking about paying attention to signs and synchronicities as a way of confirmation for what you're doing. And I don't know how much we talked about it. This has been several years ago now, but there was talk about you like ask for the sign but then let go. You have to let go. And one of the women in the group actually stopped participating, and the reason that she gave was that it really started to frustrate her that we were talking about looking for signs, and she was even talking about how she's not a generator type, and so signs aren't really her thing, because a lot of us, I met Angel in a human design mastermind. Like we spent 3 months deep diving in group into charts, into human design, and beyond that, we all did our own work to continue on human design, gene keys, all these different things. And so we can put ourselves in these boxes even within our human design type. And that's basically what she was saying. She was like, I ask for a sign and I look for it and I don't get it. And I just end up being frustrated.
Mm.
And I'm sure so many people can understand that. And so, really, the key is ask for it, but then really let it go, let it go. And that sounds so simple. Um, but I just kind of have to forget about it. In fact, Emma Dunwoody teaches to ask for the sign and write it down, even. That way you can truly let it go in your mind. And then if something happens, you can go back and say, wait a minute, was that the sign? I remember when I was asking if I needed to buy this course. It was a $2,300 course for social media. And even though I never ended up doing the course because of my own follow through issues back then, which are getting much, much better, thank you very much, um, I asked for a sign and what I heard was ruby. And I said, oh, okay. Well, show me rubies then if I meant to buy this, if I meant to buy this course. And that very day, I saw the name Ruby on a billboard. And then I cannot remember the other ruby sign, but it was within a few days I got rubies, but I had truly let go of it. And I was okay with not buying the course. And I was okay with buying the course. I had to let that go. Like, have you had times like that where you've been holding on? Like, what is your story with understanding and following signs and synchronicities?
It's still a work in progress for sure.
Yeah, I think for all of
Yeah.
us.
I feel like I definitely get like an ego slap down, sometimes when you just get out of your I think it's that's a tough one. So I'm contemplating doing an ancestral lineage practitioner training, and it's a year-long investment of time, a lot of time. So I did do a year-long program already, so it's like, again, with like the donut shop experience, like I know my tendency for burnout. So it's
Mm,
something where I'm just trying to put out there. And I finally did get to this place where I knew I could go either way. Like it kind of
ah,
gave me a little relief thinking I didn't need to do the course, where right before then I was like, no, I have to do this because what else am I going to
yeah,
be doing? So it was this push and my ego wanted the title and the I'm about to go visit with my family, and so to tell a group of people who are going to be asking me, "What are you doing? What's happening? What's going on?" And this would be like a proclamation, So I knew I was filling
ah,
that cup, but when I
yeah,
really then started filling out the application, which is like 7 pages long, as I'm doing it, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know if I actually really want to do this." And that's when I got to this place of, okay, I see pros and cons either way. Now is for a good time for me to ask for signs, right? Because I
yeah,
wasn't pushing or forcing it.
yeah.
So I'm in that moment of asking, and something came in where I went online. I'm joining a lot more groups for adoption, people that are adopted, and I joined this one online 2 days ago. Wonderful group, just talking about how we regulate ourselves and do wellness. What's the difference between self indulgence and self regulation, kind of a thing. So great
Um,
people. We do a breakout room. 3 people on the screen I've never met. And two of them were talking about this podcast called, I don't know if I should name it, but talking about a podcast. I thought,
you
wow,
can.
you guys make it sound like this is so good. I should check it out. So then I go for a walk and I put the podcast on. And the first episode is a Korean woman who is talking
Ah,
all about ancestral lineage repair work. And now the two
oh my
people that
goodness.
recommended this to me are Caucasian, they're domestic adoptees, has nothing to do with Korea, and the people that I was on the screen with, like the podcast host, nothing had to do with Korea. So the fact that out of all the different possibilities, that's the first thing, and that was the subject matter. But
Yeah.
still, I still go, okay, because this is, I think it depends on how big a risk, how big of an investment is it? How much is this going to really affect you? In those moments, want a few signs. I don't want to just lean on one. I've got to, like,
Yeah.
I'm asking for multiple so that I don't
Yeah.
question it anymore. I can lock into that knowing, that innate embodied, oh, I know without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, yeah, because to me sometimes it's just our guides or God, playing with us and communicating with us. And
Yeah.
so again, that's another time where our minds may say, "Oh, well obviously I'm supposed to do this because." But then we do have our gut, not our emotions about it, right? Like not the logic but our gut. Kind of like when I would get on the Airbnb, to me, I had received the signs. Yes, you're flying. Yes, you're going to California. I mean, because again, in 2 episodes ago, like I talk about boom, 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 all these California signs come in, but I would get on Airbnb and, no, it just didn't feel right. It just
Yep.
didn't feel right.
I
And
love that. That's such a
Now
good
something else has
story.
opened up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, how are we being communicated with? And for whatever reason, it's wanting to come up how this reminds me of how I found human design in a way.
I don't know the
Because,
story.
yeah, how I found human design is that I went to a week-long therapy retreat called Green Shoe. My understanding is they have Green Shoe all over the US in, different states. And so here in Oklahoma City, there's something called Green Shoe. And the way that it was described to me, because I heard about it in CODA circles, so Codependence Anonymous. And these women around here were talking about how amazing it was and that it was like a year's worth of therapy in a week. And you're there with other women. Oh, and it's free. You pay at the beginning of the week. And then once you complete the week, you get all of your money back. Or you can choose to donate it for someone else to be able to come who's not able to put down the money initially. And so I go to this retreat. It was absolutely amazing. I'd already been doing to be magnetic work. So it reminded me of that. Some of the visualization we would do, like it fit in to me with what we were doing, plus some of the somatic work that we did. And you're in groups, you're being heard, you're being held, you're connecting with one another, right? And so after that, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks later, maybe longer. I don't completely remember, but we have a text group. And one of the women in the text group sends us a podcast that she's been liking. And she's like, hey, I've been really liking this podcast. If anyone, if this resonates with anybody, do you all have any podcast recommendations? I'm looking for some new podcasts. So, we start giving a few. And one woman says, all I know is like human design has really changed my life. Learning that I'm a manifesting generator, da 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 da. And the moment she says that, already I've heard Lacey of To Be Magnetic, TBM. I've heard her talking about how she's a projector. And, they talk about human design here and there, at least in the podcast. And so already when she started talking about human design and she was a manifesting generator, my radar went up. I didn't know it was my Manny Gen, the generator, something to respond to thing going up. But she says that and I go, oh, okay, well, what's a podcast you recommend? And she said, oh, no, not a podcast. I was just mentioning it. And at least she did give me where to go to first. She was like, I would honestly look up your type first. So which was manifesting generator. I would look that up first and learn about that. And that is how I found human design. And really what I mean by that is just the randomness of it. But there was a gut feeling about it, right? But yeah, I'm not sure what it is exactly about that story that reminded me of that. But that's how I found it. And I started diving in via Karen Curry Parker's book, the one that's very simple, where it has, the types, the channels, and all that. And then as I was trying to find podcasts, once I found Emma Dunwoody's podcast, I'm the type where once I find someone that my energy locks in on, that they're the ones I want to learn from, I let go of everything else,
Mm-hmm.
of pretty much anyone else that I'm learning about that subject from. And so I dove into her work. And again, that's where I met you. I
Mm-hmm.
also went to one of her retreats in Mexico. She and I have worked together. Oh my gosh. So here's a little synchronicity also. I had a brand new client come in a couple days ago. And so before we got on, I kept hearing podcasts. And I was thinking of my podcast of, oh my gosh, I have my first person that's heard my podcast and is coming to me from my podcast. Wow, that's so cool. So I ask her when we get on, I say, I'm so curious as to how you found me. And what she actually starts talking about, she didn't even know her name. She goes, I was listening to some podcast. I'm not sure what it was, but they were talking about the emotion code. And there was a woman that was interviewing him. And she gave a shout out at the end to some guy named Frank and then to you, Tiffany Hart. And it was Emma Dunwoody's podcast
Yeah.
where she interviews Bradley Nelson, who's the one that came up with emotion code, body code, belief code, all things that I'm certified in and that I worked, got certified in. And that's how she found me, from a random shout out from a podcast she didn't even know the name of.
That's
Um,
great.
and it didn't even have my links in the show notes because when I went and listened to that episode, because I had heard that there was a shout out, no, I didn't. No, I just decided to listen to that one. Yeah. And then I heard the shout out and oh my gosh. But that hit her in a
Right.
way where she
Right.
said, I've actually been thinking about booking with you since March,
Mhm.
but I haven't. And
Mhm.
I do want to wrap the story up real quick because there's another synchronicity that I want to talk about here too. It's closing the energetic door on things,
Mm.
right? When we leave things open ended, that we can be scattered. So what it was is in my Unveiled program, which is a longer term program, when I opened it back up in March, I decided to just keep it open. Anybody can come in at any time, March, April, May, even though I knew in my heart it was meant to be in quarter increments, right? The quarters of the fiscal year. Nobody knew. Well, nobody booked a one-on-one with me. From March 9th was the last time someone booked a one-on-one with me. I hadn't even realized it because I had, clients that had already come to me. I had them coming in doing different things with me, but not a like one on one, right? So, there was still action and I was taking care of my unveiled clients, but it wasn't until this last time when July 6th, I energetically shut the door on Unveiled and said, we are not opening it back up until October. I can't have this open. I can feel I have other things to focus on. 2 days after I shut the door, this woman who I'm talking about from Emma Dunwoody's podcast, who's been thinking about me since March, thinking about booking with me, booked. And when I got her email, the time was 123, 10:23. And guess what else? Two of my unveiled clients live in Chicago, Illinois. She lives in Chicago, Illinois.
Mhm.
And then there's also, she has a Latino last name. And so many of my clientele right now, for whatever the reason is, are Latino,
Mhm.
Latina, right? It's wild. So all that just kind of wanted to be said of, energy is real. Pay attention to the signs and synchronicities. Like whenever her email came in as booking at 10:23 at 123 after I'd energetically shut the door.
Well, and I
And
think
that,
that's the
yeah,
piece
go
though,
ahead.
is because that's what you made a declaration. And I think
Mhm.
by making that declaration, you're putting worth on your time. And by sealing that, you make this space, like you give it more weight, right? You give this more, I think it's just by you putting that claim on yourself. Cause I think one of the biggest heartbreaks in our world is self-hate,
Oh,
self-hatred. And I think that
yes.
is really at the core of all, whatever that word is, sin or evil or whatever that means. Like, I think it's really
Yep.
what we do to ourselves. And then if you zoom
Mhm.
out, what collectively we've done to ourselves, right? And just it goes further, further out. And so
Yeah.
by doing something that we're now calling boundaries, well, that's really a
Mhm.
form of self love by putting
Yeah.
value on your time, your space energetically. And it's such a small, subtle shift, but that's
Mhm.
the subtle body and the subtle energy.
Yeah.
And I think this fun that we have playing with the synchronicities is fun because it's like food and dopamine and all this. Like we want to do more of it so that we're safe and healthy. But it's bigger than that. We don't see the underlying like mycelial network connections. We don't
Mm.
know what's
Yeah.
underneath these reasons why people are popping up from different areas. It could be as very simple as the wise ones of the land that they're on. It could be the
Mm.
roots of the trees that are really doing the work.
Oof.
It could be the condensation of the clouds, right? Like that is where, I mean, I get goosebumps just even thinking about that. Like that to
Yeah.
me is a wisdom far, far deeper and greater. And we as humans, just because we have mouths and we can speak and have language, we think we're
Yeah.
doing all this. And the joke's on us. It's like, no, you're just in the theater. But if you just settle
Yeah.
in, and I think that's why the more we get heady and high into our ego mind, that's when things get so disjointed. And then the self hatred begins. Whereas if we just keep settling back into that toroidal, energy of going back into earth, going back
Yeah.
into nature and having this gratitude towards it, we're not manipulating anything. We're saying yes to ourselves by letting it go. And that's why the letting it
Yeah.
go is so crucial. I would say letting it go is more crucial than ever grasping towards. Like, I'm not a big vision board person. I'm not somebody who needs to, put all of this thought into a thing that I want, because it's like, what the heck do I know about anything? I want to let all of that go and just say, take me where I'm supposed to be, because there's so much more at play. And thank gosh we can't see it, because it would be terrifying
Yeah.
if we could.
Sometimes we would freak the fuck out, but yet whenever it happens because of normal means, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, this is what we're doing now. All right. I see. I understand now.
Yeah. Like, we don't
And
need to know how our
oh, go
heart
ahead.
beats and how the car moves and all the things. We just do it. We
Yeah.
just go with it. So I love those stories, though, because it just, whenever you share your story and your experience through your perspective, it
Mm-hmm.
does. The way you narrate it helps me, and I'm sure others listening, see the bliss and the magic in the mundane little moments. And
Oh,
to put, like, emphasis on
yeah.
that is really all we need to do.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it feels like, because I didn't used to get signs all the time. Most people that I know that are starting to get signs or now get a lot of signs, it didn't start off that way. I remember whenever my best friend was telling me she kept seeing the angel number 420. I mean, and of course, there's the way that we can joke about it, like, haha, 420 in relation to weed. But for her, it wasn't about that. But she kept getting it over and over again. And I remember being a little jealous and thinking, like, oh, I want that. I want to
Yeah.
get signs. And now here I am, because even in the story that you said about how we're all, there's this connection of the mycelial network, which I believe has to do with like mushrooms and roots underneath and all that. But that made me think of the roots of the tree are also there. And the woman that I was just talking about that booked, when we were going into her meditation, I was being shown to like have her imagine herself as a tree actually walking. She's a tree walking. And I've never had that happen before, and then here you come talk and you specifically bring in that connection.
Yeah.
By the way, you've got this like thing that has been floating around you for a while. It just
Oh,
now did. At first, I was like, it is fuzz, isn't it? No, it's not. But this time it came across the screen horizontal and then went up like through your face or something. I still can tell myself, oh, it's this or it's that. And I have
right.
to remember, like, just believe in in the magic. Just believe in the magic.
Yeah, and to not, for me, I have to remind myself not to hate on that little part of me
Mm-hmm.
that wants and needs it to make sense, right? Like, I used to even play that and be like, shame that I couldn't get into my magical mind. It's like, no, it makes sense. Like, it's trying to make sense of the world, and it's scary sometimes. Like, we don't want to get
Yeah.
too far floaty out and stay, ungrounded. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think it
It's
just goes
both.
to.
It's
Mhm.
it it's both. I mean, I have to often, like, bring myself back down into my body.
Yeah.
Just bring myself, like, really remember that, because sometimes when we're on our spiritual journey, we can feel like that's actually way more important than being here.
Yep.
I don't really wanna be here, I wanna be there.
Yep.
But actually, this physical body it's the whole point, and the normal human life is the whole point. Like, the soul is having this experience.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Ooh, okay. I'm being brought to another quick synchronicity. So when you were bringing up self-hate, just this morning, I was listening to a little bonus podcast episode that's going to be it's going to at the point when people are listening to this, it's going to have come out just before this. And it was a surprise channeling that came out of it was me connecting to Jesus's energy, the Christ consciousness energy. And there is a channeling on something that what they've been calling it to me is the addiction grid. You know how there are different grids, but it's this addiction grid. So if this like stands out to anyone, please go listen, and please don't go like looking for this by yourself and all this and that. It's explained in there because it's anyway. But what he's talking about, um is this self-hate. It's the ways that we are hating ourselves, and that when we learn to really, I want this to come through how it wants to come through. So I'm going to just ask, how is this meant to come through? Because it was so powerful in the last episode and so articulately put, I think, whenever I listen back to it. It's kind of like how you said, I'm going to paraphrase, the unhappiness in this world is because of, when it comes down to it, self-hate. And it really also takes a lot of inner work and inner knowledge to even realize some of the things that we are doing are hating on ourselves, is negative self-talk. That actually speaking in this ways to ourselves and pushing ourselves in this certain way is actually not kind. It's not loving towards ourselves, but it's all we've ever known, all we've ever learned. So we don't even realize that it's hating on ourselves to say these things to ourselves, to work until we're burnt out, like all of these things. And so I feel like that is even such an important topic. And thank you for even bringing that up. Thank you to our guides who had you bring that up. Of at the center of my work, I have realized is truly helping people get back to who they really are, which is at the center of it, love. You know, I didn't go back to my last name, Hart, for no reason. I didn't know why I was going back to Hart. I actually had quite a resistance for probably a year and a half or so, because my married name is both of my husband's names hyphenated because I wanted to have the same last name as my kids. However, now it does not resonate at all. I'm like, who am I? You know, when people see my legal name, I'm just a culmination of my two husbands. Like, what? And so at some point, even though there are some unhappy memories and a lot of trauma with the Hart name in my family, with the person, with the grandfather, for example, who I know it comes from, and I'm sure way on past him, when it came down to it, Hart needed, my maiden name needed to be what I went back to do this business, because that's where we're all getting to, is to the center of our heart. Like, who are we really?
I love that.
Who are we?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
it. And part of the ancestral work that I've been learning about is just that. It's you
Mm-hmm.
are not just poof here as
Mm.
Tiffany. You are a lineage of
Yeah.
many different. Think about all the ones who had, we're talking thousands and thousands and thousands of years who had to get to
Mm-hmm.
where you are. And so part of what I try to do with mine is say, thank you for the blessings and thank you for
Mm.
helping me transmute the burdens, because there are
Oh,
burdens.
yeah.
And you, as you are, and doing all of this incredible work, and I've been a receiver of many of your modalities, so I know
Mm.
firsthand how
Thank
incredible
you.
it is. Having that gift is from those that maybe we look on their incarnate ways, but we don't know what happened before them and before them and before them.
Yeah.
And just how
Yeah.
ironic, but not ironic, that's not the right word, how beautiful it is that by you giving love to the Heart name is what's healing that trauma and the pain of what that represented in the past, so it's like that is how we heal and how we cure is through love. So it just
Yeah.
perfect. I love that.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. One of the things that I really, really would like to talk about for just a second, because it's light language, because I speak it so much on the podcast. I use it for energy healings. I use it for resetting the body. I use it for bringing in new beliefs. I use it for clearing curses. I mean, you name it. It is a very powerful tool. You know, if you want to call it a modality, it is the most powerful modality I have ever, ever, ever found. But when I first found it, I didn't know it could do all this. I had
Oh.
no idea. I learned it all through experience. I've not taken a single course on light language. It's all been through me, as my parents might have said, farting around, me just messing around. And so the whole way that I even found light language was one of the women that we were in the mastermind with, Britta. I remember we were in a group together. I don't know if you were in it or not. I think it was in Telegram. So you might have been. But she comes in and she basically says something like, "Hey guys, I found light language. Oh my gosh, I'm going to speak it to you all. Check this out." And so she starts speaking it. And I remember I'm in this house. I'm walking around in the living room, and dining room, and just walking, just pacing as I'm listening to it. I'm giggling like a schoolgirl. Never heard this before, thought it was so strange, but yet it felt so amazing.
Yeah.
It felt so amazing. And then my personal light language wasn't activated until, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months later. And there's a whole story behind that, but it did get activated. And again, it was just a fun thing that I did sometimes. I mean, there was one time I was constipated that I thought, let me play around with this. So I used light language and imagery and brought all this golden light down into my intestines and all that. And within 5 minutes, I cleared out. Okay. So that was my first, oh, this is real. But then I remembered you already knew about light language and you sent a video of you speaking it. So what I want to know what you want to share about light language. And please also, dear God, speak it, do whatever you want here if you feel
Mm.
comfortable. If you feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's interesting when you said you haven't taken a course on it because I can't imagine anybody. I mean, I know there must be, but I can't, I just feel like light language is kind of like a baby, the first time in a pool, just like it's something just innate. I don't think I could
Oh,
have anybody teach it to me. I don't know. I'm not saying that that's not possible. Maybe we do need to be activated in different ways, but I did not. I just started speaking it. I don't really have a story around it. And I got to say, I don't even have conscious memory of when I first started doing it. I didn't share it with people. It's not something that I really, because I didn't want to sound crazy,
yeah. I was
but
going to say, did you think you were crazy? Did you think, what in the world is happening to me?
it felt natural enough to where I knew it was real.
Ah,
But it was private, kind of like the same when my mother saw
mm,
me pray. My adopted mom saw me pray.
mm,
It was a private prayer, really, is kind of what it felt like. And so growing up where you're kind of the odd one out, I always was very hyper aware of their perception of me. So I hid everything. Whether or not it should have been hidden, I hid
ah,
everything. So I think that was just
yeah.
my normal. But yeah, and for me, it does have a lot of hand gestures and movements. And I think when the first time I saw somebody else do it, I was just so excited because I'm like, oh, that's what I've been doing. I didn't have a name
Yeah.
for
Oh,
it. It didn't,
like
it
coming
just was,
home.
yeah. And it's kind of like meeting other adoptees. When I saw a room full of
Oh,
people that look like me, I'm like, oh, you'd have that too. You have crooked teeth like I, whatever. It's just a self recognition, right? And so let's see if I can. There's a lot of distraction next to me, so see if I can
yeah.
clear
What
some
I
of
keep hearing is if you could give us a blessing with light language,
Hmm.
a blessing.
Yeah, and that's interesting because I don't even really have intent behind it, I just try to get out of the way,
I
but
didn't used to either.
yeah,
And
so that's fun
sometimes
to
I
play
do,
with.
sometimes I don't.
Yeah. Kuala masukulik segre krish wulip erebre krep nachnalawa ere pedapore kasalawat sata ane kwesh wachakatata ane katatale popo eshwachukane krishwa pa saksatari kereru kozwa petiti and set ala watara pochuche urikatale pure beka sikaso tane mona mota kalaba pere karat se so sikasashawa elewakcha Hase kusu asu labade kachar papa sese enem what's a tatsala la mojeka arabutsa katale pachaka kripsa tuta what it's a ka.
Thank you so much. I think that was such a fun way to end the episode.
Thank you for inviting that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I really appreciate it. And I'm glad that even though, what was it, probably 3 years ago, we did all this legwork to start a podcast together and that didn't end up doing it. It's kind of cool to be here now in this moment, getting to share back and forth. And I know too, um, I can feel, I just felt into, I can feel that there are at least 3 people that are going to deeply resonate with the adoption portion of
Mm.
your story and your experience. And so, again, thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure too that was ripe and full of synchronicities and following your intuition to each next step. And, that's really just all life is, right?
It is,
Yeah.
yeah. It's just the
Yeah.
uncovering. And I think even 3 years ago, I I don't know. I'm not saying that I wasn't ready for it at the time, but I think there's just so much of the hidden layers that
Yeah.
now I feel more of myself. And so I've been telling my story more and being more,
Mm.
it just seems like a good time now. So I think that I
Yeah.
trust the timing now is
Yeah.
it's right on time.
I love that. Thank you so much. And thank you all for listening. Those of you who've listened to at the end of the episode, well, we just want to say that we thank you for being here and hearing our conversation and hearing this story. And if it meant something to you, or there's someone where you feel like they'll resonate with parts of the story, and whether it is trusting their intuition or whether it is the portion of like, there's so much more that Angel could say about her adoption journey. And so if people are curious, let us know, and let us know what parts you might want to hear, because we could, share more, whether on here or if you want to reach out to her directly. Do you want to share your Instagram in case someone wants to ask you questions? Okay.
Absolutely. It is set to private right now because I've just been in a little bit of a hibernation, but I'll always accept, requests. And it's Angel Moran Art.
Yes, because Angel is an artist and I've seen some of her art and it is so beautiful. It really,
Thank
really is. Yes.
thank
So
you.
Angel Marine Art. Okay. Well, if you like this episode, again, please share it with someone that you feel like it will resonate with, that you feel, if you felt like it changed any thought processes for you and there's someone coming to mind, feel free to share it. Please also follow or subscribe depending on where you are. And then if you really want to show some love, please rate it and give us a review. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a beautiful day. If this episode spoke to you, please subscribe and leave a review so others can find the show too. Your support helps this community grow and brings more voices into the conversation. Plus, I would love to hear your biggest takeaway. Thank you so much.